let's start. I think there are still a lot of people having coffee, cake, whatever. Probably you had a good party yesterday evening, so you need a lot of coffee. So this is going to be the session in this room. So if you ever attending another session, then you should change your room. So we're going to talk about get control of your Azure Synapse environment, define the access control the right way. So how many people are using Azure Synapse Analytics? So I'm not going to explain today what Azure Synapse Analytics is. So there's not an introduction session. So I'm intending that you know something about Synapse Analytics. So my name is Erwin de Kreuk. I'm a data platform MVP. I'm a principal consultant working as a lead for the data and AI team within in Spark. As in Spark, we are a Microsoft partner, a Microsoft only partner. If you want to contact me, my contact details are on the screen, Twitter, LinkedIn, my own website, where I blog about Purview, about Data Factory, Synapse, Key Vault, whatever, all the things with Azure Data Services. And afterwards, you will find the slides of this session on my GitHub page as well. So if you want to read something, I put in some more sentences over there that you can read it easily and slowly afterwards, because we only have 1 hour. So, as in Spark, we help organizations accelerating their digital transformations with impactful Microsoft solutions and expertise. So we are a company with almost all the solution partner areas filled in, and we are with about 180 people. So you had a party yesterday evening, you had coffee, cake, whatever. Thanks to the sponsors, because without sponsors, these events cannot happen. And they make it really cool for us as well. So for today, I've created a small agenda. We're going to talk about the different roles in Azure Synapse Analytics. So what you need to do to get it all working in Azure, what you need to do to get it working in Synapse. And as you all know, we have different kind of databases as well, or SQL pools as well in Synapse Analytics. What kind of you have to do as well there. I will show you some handy tips for the Git integration. And we will talk a little bit about privileged identity management, which is currently in preview, but it's really awesome to use. So what I always do is I'm creating just an overview to see, okay, what are we going to do today? So mainly we have like a resource in our development environment. We need to use DevOps to get everything working in production, and we have a production resource group. And we're going to talk about how we can set up access control for data engineers, but we're also going to talk about how we can set up access control for data scientists. So that should be the end goal. If I not, then I failed my session, but this should be at the end, that a data scientist can only run notebooks and a data engineer can only run pipelines, for example. So, a little bit technical stuff, but we have the resource plane in Azure where we can create our Synapse environment, and we need to be an Azure owner on that resource or contributor to create our Synapse Workspace, but also to manage our Synapse Workspace. And you can even go a little bit deeper, but then you can say, okay, if I only want to manage my Synapse Workspace, I can also define access control on the Synapse Workspace. So just to recap a little bit, we have a resource group, so that's the whole plane, and we have in the plane we have the only resource. So that's what I mean here with Azure Synapse Analytics, and you can define access control on top or on the resource level. So the next thing is Azure Synapse Analytics always needs to have a data lake where we can store all libraries, Spark pools, and that kind of stuff. But we need some temp directories, but we also need to build our lakehouse models. So we need also have to have access on the storage as a data contributor. So reader will not be enough, because contributor can read and write to the storage. So that's very important to know. And afterwards we need, so that's the user and the workspace MSI. How many people are using managed identities in their company? Whew, cool. So you can define a workspace managed identity on that system. The great thing of using managed identity is there is no password involved, and we're only deploying or giving the resource access. And then finally, we need some reader access on the resource group or Synapse Workspace to get to that data lake storage. And if you can see it over here, you will see that if you create a workspace, it will automatically set these correct permissions on your data lake storage. So once we have deployed our Synapse Analytics environment, we will have three different administrators over there. So we have the Synapse administrator, that's almost God mode. Then we have the Synapse Apache Spark administrator, that's God mode for everything what you are doing with notebooks and Spark pools, creating new pools, etc., scaling up, scaling down. Then we have the Synapse SQL administrator, that's only the SQL admin for the SQL pools. How many people are using SQL pools? So the old Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Woo, that's still a lot. Cool. That's going to change in the next couple of years, I think. And what I'm still missing is that we don't have a special role for the Synapse Data Explorer, so the KQL administrator, because that's a really different approach as well. And you don't want that everybody's going to change that database. Currently, the Synapse administrator can do all the things what the Synapse Data Explorer administrator can do as well. So I've just created a small overview to see what is happening. The Synapse administrator, what I already said is God mode. So it can do everything based on the different like SQL pool, Spark, Data Explorer, and the integration runtimes. And then we have the SQL administrator, and as you can see, these persons have directly access on the SQL Server SQL pool. So how many people are using this serverless SQL pool? You should start using it. It's really handy. You don't pay any compute costs. It's cheap. And then we have the Synapse Apache Spark administrator, which also can run only can run the Spark pool. So scaling up. So how many people are using Spark in Synapse? Only one? Two? Who's using notebooks in Databricks? Okay. And then we have the SQL Active Directory admin, and that's actually the one which can also directly access that SQL pool, so the old Azure SQL Data Warehouse, so the massive parallel processing system. So just as a recap, the Synapse administrator, it can do all this stuff. I'm not going to read it all, but it's easy if you have the slides afterwards to see what it can do. But also very important, it can use the secrets stored by linked servers or credentials. So that one can define the access control with the key vault. How many people are using key vault to store all their credentials? Whew. I'm happy today. So, and of course, once you're an administrator, you can assign and revoke RBAC roles on the current scope. So the current scope means the Synapse Analytics environment. So not a resource group, but the Synapse Analytics environment. Yeah. That's logical that the Apache Spark administrator can do all actions on the Spark artifacts and can do all actions on Spark activities. So calling notebooks, executing jobs, etc., etc. And of course, the Synapse SQL administrator can do everything on the SQL script and can connect to the SQL serverless endpoints with the SQL DB data reader, data writer, connect, and grant permission. So that's automatically done if you are a Synapse SQL administrator. So I have explained now about 3 different admin roles. Who knows how many different roles we have more in Synapse? 1, 2, 3?
About 30, I would say.
How much?
About 30, I would say.
30? Oh, then I have a long talk today.
If you check out the documentation, it's the longest.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the roles within the Synapse Analytics environment, and currently we have 8. So 30, that's a little bit too many. But if we look to the non-administrative roles, so we have contributors, artifact publisher. There are a lot of them, but I will do the next slide because that's easier to see. So we have the Synapse contributor. The person can work with it, with the artifact publisher, artifact user, compute operators, monitor operators. And I'm not going to explain them all by detail because what you are saying, the website, the Learn page from Microsoft, they have enough. And we have the Synapse user. So if you compare it a little bit, I just did more like if you are preparing your sessions and you want to see what different roles can do what different things, then it is handy to have an overview to see a little bit, okay, when I'm a user, what I'm allowed to do, or what can I do on who's is allowed to do some Spark activities, etc., etc. It was more like an overview for myself to see, okay, if I need to have a role for a customer, which role do I have to define for that data engineer, or which role do I have to, or which user do I have to define for to publish, for example, to DevOps, because that's one of the to publish data. We need to have the artifact publisher role as well, because that's very important. And as you can see, the contributor can do almost the same thing as the administrator, except a couple of things. But like in Azure, the owner can do everything, and the contributor can do almost everything. And then after that, we had, so that was the workspace. But in the workspace, we can do a more fine-grained access control as well. So that means that we can give certain people access to a certain Spark pool, for example, so that we even can fine-grain it even more to integration runtimes, to linked services, or even to credentials, which can be very easy if you have a large setup. So, and that really depends on the kind of customer you have, or the kind of company you are. So, what I already said, this is almost a whole list. So, what you can do, you can assign that role. So, for how many people is this new to see? Everybody knows where to find this? Yeah, so you go to Azure Synapse Analytics, the management pane, and then access control, you will find this overview. Who can assign everything? You need to be a Synapse administrator. This can also be a guest user. So it doesn't matter that you from another company working in that tenant. As long as you're a guest user, you can do the same thing as a user from the company. And if you are not a Synapse administrator, you need to be contributor or owner on the workspace. And the workspace, I mean the Azure resource. So not in the Synapse Analytics resource, but the Azure resource. And what I always advise, don't assign any roles to certain people, but always assign them to a security group and add the people to the security group. Very important to know, changes in assignments, because sometimes if you are testing, oh, it's not working, and then you get some coffee, it's working. There is something happening in the background, so it will take up to 2 to 5 minutes. And if you do some changes within your security groups, so within your Azure AD, it can take up to 10 to 15 minutes. So be aware that if you assign new use to that security group and then assign that security group to your access control, that can take to 15 minutes. And then what I already said, you can even get that role assignment even on a lower level and then for a group of users. So some tips and tricks. The session is not finished, so if you get a no access message in the Azure portal, because sometimes if you add a user to a security group and that user has no access in the Azure portal, you will get the error message that you do not have any subscriptions in the Spark Labs directory. Click here to switch to another directory. That means that you don't have reader access in the Azure portal. So that's the at least you need to have to see the resource to get connected to the resource. So what you can do, if your company is saying, okay, I will not give you any rights to the Azure portal, which can be, then you can use it manually, because every workspace has its own, we call it resource ID. And once you have that, once you can add it in your manually, and then you will be connected. And then the next time you need to connect to web.azuresynapse.net instead of the Azure portal. Yeah? Power BI, that's the same situation. if your user has no Power BI access rights, you will find the error message within Synapse Analytics that you don't have access to get to that report. So the access for Power BI is you need to have a user in Power BI to use Power BI reports in your Synapse environment. So if you don't have access over there, then you need access over here. Yeah. So I already explained that you have different roles and that you will get some access that you don't have the required RBAC permissions. If you publish, so how many people are using Azure Synapse Analytics in combination with Azure DevOps? So your DevOps, what is happening, so your DevOps is a repository, and once your repository is finished, you do a merge from your feature request to your development branch, and then the publish will start automatically in DevOps, but then you need access right to the resources in Azure as well. So and if you don't have that, if you do it manually to publish, then you will get this error, and otherwise your pipeline will fail because your service connection has no access. But I will explain that a little bit later as well. And the great thing is, if you do not have access on that specified artifact or activity, you will get an almost detailed error message like action, Microsoft Synapse, Workspace, triggers, write, scope, Workspace, blah, blah, blah. You don't have required permissions on that one. And then you can go to the Microsoft Learn page and you can directly see which workspace item or user group you need to be defined on that part. As you can see, there are really a lot of them. And what I've done, don't read it. I will upload an Excel sheet where you can directly see, because otherwise you have to go to the website. I have an Excel sheet created where you have all the error messages and that you directly can see, okay, if I do not have access to triggers, for example, then I need to have these 3 roles assigned to use them. So triggers are schedules, and you don't want to change. You don't want to have that everybody is changing your triggers, because then maybe something get mixed up. So what I will do, I will switch my screen and just show you a little bit how Synapse is going to work and how we can do some access control, and then we will continue to move on with some more demos. So for the people who are not familiar with Synapse, once you log in, you will see the screen. If you can't see it, let me know, because then I can zoom, okay? But if you let's say I have access control, and I can check with my account to see what kind of access do I have. So you have the option, view access, and in this case, because I'm the admin of my own subscription, of my own tenant, I have the owner role. But if I go to my data lake, because that's required to build a Synapse environment, I can also check what kind of access control I have over here. But I can also check for other people. So I can say the managed identity from, where are you? Synapse Workspace, this one, what kind of access does it have? And as you can see, what I already explained in the beginning, if you create a Synapse Workspace with that data lake automatically, that managed identity is automatically assigned. Oh, this is not going to work. Oh, this is going to work, but you get that the storage blob data contributor directly assigned when you're creating a new workspace. So if you create a new workspace, I can show you that let me show you that. So you can see here, I need to assign that data lake, and I need to assign a file system. And then, as you can see, you will automatically have that contributor role assigned on the workspace. So if we go as an administrator to our Synapse environment, we can go to the management pane. So we have a lot of different panes over here, but the management pane is the most important pane of our activity hub to do that. So I can create, if I have the correct rights, I can create a new SQL pool. And then, as you can see, I'm not creating a SQL pool because then I cannot do any demos this month anymore because it's going to cost you a lot of money if I forget to switch it off. But you can switch it on, and then you can create that SQL pool. So I didn't do anything. I'm an Active Directory admin. I can do everything over here. The serverless SQL pool, what's in here, is built in. So that's automatically assigned over there. And creating new SQL databases in that SQL pool, you can do that as an admin. And this is the same actually as you go to the Spark pools. So for how many people is this new? This is the first time that you're seeing the screen. Okay, that's cool. So you can create a new Spark pool and you can do almost everything on here. And that's the same that you can create that new Data Explorer pools. How many people are using Data Explorer pools within Synapse or? Yeah, cool. What is the use case you're using it for? What is the use case what you're using Data Explorer pools for?
Project the situation that we have doing some merging data. So we use this data.
So was it real-time data what you're using, or more log analytics data?
No, rather log.
Okay, just a lot of data. Okay, cool. So the last step I will show you in this demo is access control. And then what I already said, explained to you, we have the access control. So what we can do, we can say, okay, we have an artifact publisher. And now you can, for example, say, okay, I need to have a security group over here. I have some security groups. And then you can assign a security group because that's the easiest way to define access control. And yes, you can build your own solution with DevOps that you can automatically publish all these roles as well. I'm going back to the presentation. Yeah. So what I already said, there are some people using dedicated SQL pools. So that is the massive parallel processing system. So that's the one on the left side. And we have the serverless SQL pools. And that's actually what is happening in the background. There's data in your data lake. You have CSV files, Delta Lake, Parquet files, whatever kind of files you have. They are in your data lake. And then you can easily create a view on top of that, a T-SQL view, and then your end users don't know that they are querying JSON files or XML files. They have just like the SQL endpoint, and you can connect Power BI on top of that. This is going to be the new world. Serverless engines. Watch build on May 23. So serverless SQL pools. By default, you'll have the Synapse administrator. You will get the DB owner permissions on the built-in serverless SQL pool. And as a Synapse SQL administrator, you can do all actions on the SQL scripts. And you have directly, already said, directly the SQL DB data reader, data writer connect and grant permission. So if I'm the SQL administrator, I cannot create new pools. I cannot create new Spark pools. But yes, I can do everything on that database. And then we have the dedicated SQL pool. The administrator, of course, yeah, he's admin, full access to data. I can grant access to other users, because that's very important as well. And we have also the Active Directory admin. So that person doesn't need to belong to the Synapse environment, but if this person is in the group, so there's on the workspace, we have the, where are you? The Azure Active Directory. So if you belong in this group, in the security group BI admins, then you have the full access control to your dedicated SQL pool. So not your serverless, but your dedicated SQL pool. Yeah, like what I already said, the Synapse SQL administrator has no access by default, which is pretty strange. So I'm the SQL administrator, but I do not have access by default on the SQL pool. And what you need to do to create that access, you need to create a login on your master database. And once your login is there, you can assign that user or that user group. So in this case, I used just a user, but you can also replace it for a security group. So be aware of that. And then use your database in your SQL pool, create a user, and then you can alter the role to add that user on top of that. these are mostly the common scripts to be used. And for the dedicated SQL pool, something is happening. For the dedicated SQL pool, there's something different. So creating the user is the same, but to add that user to a specific role is different. Then you need to execute a stored procedure, so the sp add role member, and then you need to do the DB owner and then your account. So I will switch back. So what is happening now? What I can do, I can go to my, in this case, for your purple is admin, green is data engineer, and gray is data scientist, so that you can see the different layouts. So in this case, I'm just logged in as a data engineer, as you can see, and I want to execute some scripts. So I will go to my database, and I think you already saw it. I do not have any access. And that's the same thing if I go to my data engineer, I do not have access. So what I need to do is I need to go back as an admin or SQL administrator. I go to my environment, because I do have a lot of databases over there. As you can see, we have a lakehouse and we have a lakehouse data warehouse. So I want to give these data engineer and the data scientist, I want to give access to my lakehouse. So what I need to do, I have prepared it, of course. I've created that login, so that's the same as the scripts. That login user, and this is a security group, as you can see, you need to execute it on your master database. So you need to execute it on, where is it? The master. The next thing is that we need to add that user to create user. I will zoom in a little bit. Create user, the security group data scientist for development, from external provider, and then I want to have read access. And that's the same thing I'm going to do for the data engineer, and then alter the role as well for the data reader. If you need more specific rights, you can add more specific rights there as well. So, but normally data engineers, they, on a serverless engine, they only need to read data. Or, for example, the reporting specialist needs to execute data to their Power BI reports. They don't need any write actions. So I'm going to execute this user. I'm going to click on run. And don't forget that you have to assign the correct database over here. Because if you're not assigning that database, I still do not have any access rights, of course. So I alter the role so that I have reader access. And I will do the same for my data engineers. Sometimes it's taking pretty long, but in the meantime, I can show you that I can refresh the Synapse environment for the data engineer. And if I did everything well, so if you do not see any databases over here as a user, that means that there is no login script at that master database. So the first script, create login on the master database, that needs to be here to have access to see all the databases. Yes, you will see all the databases, but you don't have access to all the databases. So that's the difference. So in this case, I can go to Lakehouse, I can go to views, and hopefully, if there are any views, refresh. Normally you should see some views. I don't know what's happening. And what I said, it can take a little bit to execute. But believe me, I will try to show to you at the end that it is going to work. As well here, I can do a refresh now of my views. And if everything is okay, it's there now. I can execute the script. And this is just a view based created on a Delta Lake file, so on the silver or intermediate layer. So Any questions so far? Are you aligned or you're falling asleep? I can talk louder, but okay. So yeah, so this is more. What I'm showing is more the experience, what I see. So if you use DevOps, you will definitely get in the beginning this kind of error messages, because your DevOps service connection needs to have access to your Azure resources to build that template or to deploy that template. So in DevOps, you need to have the basic user settings. But so if I'm a user and I want to use my repositories, it's not going to work with stakeholder. So you need to have a basic user settings or a Visual Studio subscription license. You need to have the Azure Artifact Publisher role, at least, to publish code to your DevOps environment. And the Azure contributor or the Artifact role or higher role on the Synapse Workspace, because otherwise you cannot deploy. And then the last one is more, and then you have the DevOps service connection. What I already said, use service principals or managed identities. I think there is now a new functionality that you can use managed identities as well in DevOps to your Azure environment. That's released last week. And you need to be the Azure Synapse administrator. So what I normally do is that I add my service principal directly to my Synapse Workspace for development, test, acceptance, and production. You can use different service connections, but then give them all the rights because nobody can log in with it. So the next thing is, who is using privileged identity management? Are you using it for Synapse? Yes, you're in production? It's in preview. Ah. You have no other choice. Okay. So if you use, so what I already said, it's in preview. So there is a new functionality that's called the groups, and that's what's there in preview. Normally, you're not. My advice is don't use things in preview in production because it still can change. But I heard that it is working pretty well. So from my identity specialist. So what you can do, you can secure your Synapse administrator role. And the great thing is, instead of assigning someone to that role, someone needs to get the permission first. So that's it's more secure. And all the logins or all the identity requests are logged in a log database. So where we can directly see who went, who logged in on Synapse environment or requested the role. And you can even say, okay, we do that with an approval process. That if you need to change something in production, that someone needs to get that role, and that you have to type in the request message why you want to have that role, and then the manager can agree or approve that process. And you can also do it with specific time windows. So if you log in, that you only have 1 or 2 or 8 hours window to use that. So this is more the process. Very important to know, if you're using it, don't leave your screen. Leave it running while it is finished. It will automatically refresh your screen and your logins, but don't leave this screen, because otherwise it's not going to work and you're going to wait for ages. So yeah, let's have a look into what we can do with the data engineers and the data scientists to add. So the data engineer at the end needs to have access to the SQL serverless layer. So I just showed you, I can now go to SQL serverless, I can start doing queries. And he needs to edit or publish code. And the data scientist needs access to a specified Spark cluster, so we can assign that as well. And he needs to submit some Spark jobs. So that's the use case I'm going to show you in the demo. Yeah, there's a demo. So to achieve this, I need to go in the Synapse Workspace as an admin again, and I need to go to access control. And as you can see, I already said I need to have a data engineer what can publish code. So does someone know which kind of role we need to have to publish code? Which Synapse role do we need? Yes, that's possible, but there's also a role, artifact publisher. So that has less rights, but can do the same. Contributor is near God mode, and it depends on what you want to do. So that's, I think, the whole conference you heard, it depends. Yeah, we are consultants. It depends what you want to achieve. So if you only want to have people access control to that, to deploy to DevOps, then you are going to use the artifact publisher. If that same person needs to have access or build pipelines, starting triggers, execute Spark pools, then the contributor role will be a more available role. So yes, I have that data engineer assigned as a user because that's the basic thing. Then they can log into Synapse, and now I can give them more rights to the system. So in this case, I have the Synapse user and I have the artifact user, so that it can use the things. And what I can do, I can click on access control. I say, okay, give them the artifact publisher. I'm going to look for that security group data engineer, and I can apply. And now you will see that it will take up to 2 to 5 minutes before the actual assignment has been done. But I prepared some stuff already in advance for you. And now I will want to show you how this role is working as well. So we want to have a more fine-grained access for our data scientists. So what I can do, I can click on workspace item. I can say, okay, what kind of item type, because workspace item type, I want to give the data scientist access to a specified item. In this case, I have a lot of different Spark pools available, and I can say, okay, he will get access on Spark 3.3, or he will get access on Spark standard. And what kind of role can I give? So sometimes in development, you want to give the data scientist, because I always learned the data scientist, you have to give them the things they need and a little bit more, because then they are happy. So I always give them, on a specified cluster, the Synapse administrator or Synapse contributor role, because then they can do everything, they can scale up, and I still can see on that specified cluster how what the costs were. So I can still come back, hey, I give you the access, but you spent €1,000 this month as well on that cluster, so be aware what you're doing. And otherwise, everything is on the big belt. So going to that data scientist, as you can see a little bit over here, what I've done, you will see that I have access to that Spark 3.3 Apache Spark pool. So going back to the data scientist, I can go to the environment over here. I can go to the Apache Spark pools. Yes, I can still see them. No, I cannot add a new Spark pool. But when I want to execute that notebook, I can go to a notebook, just getting one of the notebooks, and now you will see that I do not have the required permissions, but all the clusters are grayed out. Hopefully you can see it. I don't know if it is visible on the screen, but all the clusters are grayed out except that Spark 3.3. So I have access. So if I click on that Spark 3.3, you will see that the error message will be gone as well, and I can start executing my script. So I can say, okay, run it, and the run is more, this will take 3 minutes to start up, but that's more to approve that it is going to work. So going back to my data engineer to show you that I can do a change. I can say commit. So when I click on commit, it executed or sent the data to my Git repository, and I can click on publish, and now it should publish the code to my dev or to my workspace environment. And as you can see, of course, I do not have access on the workspace, SQL script, write, scope, and the whole thing. So I need to have more access rights to get that working. So what I need to do, I should have, I think the data is not there. So the next step is, if I want to have that Synapse role, I need to access the privileged identity management. So I can go to privileged identity management, and what I did, maybe I can show you it as well. I have a group, and it's called like Synapse, I think, yeah. So I've created a group, and in that group, there are currently no members, because you are not assigning any members to that group, because the privileged identity management role assignment will do that for me. I have an activity over here, and I said, okay, I have some assignments which people or which roles are allowed to execute that PIM access. As you can see, I have a data scientist over here, but I have also a group of data engineers. So you can use both. You can use users, or you can use a group of users in there. And then if I go to the data engineer, I will go to my request. And now, by default, you will see that it is empty because it's the screen with the Azure AD roles. You need to click on groups, and now I should have a role assignment. Ooh. Something happening with the internet? No, still there. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong button, I think. As you can see, I have the security group Synapse administrator. It takes a while to refresh the screen, and I can click on activate. If I click on activate, I can add that custom activation start time. So how long do I want to have access? Want to change a row, for example. I click on activate. So I do have the scope data scientist, the role assigned to that. So I've assigned the data scientist role to that Synapse administrator role. And when everything is fine, I can refresh over here everything. Let's do that. And if I'm the admin, I should see all the Spark tools. Like the previous one, you only saw that Spark 3.3. Let's have a check. And as you can see, everything is black. And this way you can control the access even more secure, and everything is locked within your Azure Active Directory. I think I'm almost done with my slides. So just as a recap for today, I think I explained a little bit how you can define the access control in Azure Synapse Analytics. So with workspaces, with workspace items, the different administrators roles, the non-administrators roles, what you need to do for role-based access control. I explained the access control for SQL serverless, but also for the SQL pool. And I explained to you how privileged identity management is working. Are there any questions left then I'm happy to answer them.
I can break the ice. I have personal questions. Question number one: the Synapse, the SQL admin role. In one slide, I saw it's not enough. So actually, you don't have access to your SQL dedicated.
Yeah, dedicated SQL pool. Yeah.
Okay. So what you need to do?
So for the Synapse dedicated SQL pool, you need to be one of the Azure Active Directory admins, which you can assign on the Synapse Workspace. So if you're in there, you have all the rights, like if you do like a normal Azure SQL database. If you assign that SQL admin role, I will show you.
You need to create a user.
Yeah, or a group of users. So the security, the Azure Active Directory, a group of users or a user, which is the admin. And if you are the admin on the workspace, the Azure Active Directory admin, that's the same if you're which you are using with SQL, then you have all the access to the dedicated SQL pool. That answering your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Question number 2?
Question number 2, resource groups.
Yes?
Because of course the workspace is hosted in a resource group. Then if I have, I don't know, any artifact, any user role in the workspace, I can see artifacts or I can see items, whatever, on a user level, group level. Do I need anything on the resource group for accessing the workspace?
So do I need to have, because to repeat for online, do I need to have access control on the resource group what I advise, if you can get reader rights, then you can open the Azure portal, you can see the resource, and then you can click on the resource and you can open it. If not, somewhere in the slide I showed you that you can enter the resource ID, and then you can connect to the web Azure Synapse.net, and then you don't need any access control as a user. So of course, as admin, you need more rights, but as a user, you don't need any access in the resource or in the Azure portal.
Okay, but at the resource group, if we go for the resource group, then you need the read access at least.
Yeah, on the resource.
The resource group.
On the resource group, you don't need anything.
Okay.
But then then if you open the Azure portal, then you first have to find Synapse and then go to the Synapse Workspace and open it. And otherwise, you can make a dashboard with resource groups or whatever. So that's not going to work. So with the resource group, you will see more resources. You will also maybe see all the private endpoints and that kind of stuff. And if you only give access to the Synapse Workspace, then you can go directly to the Synapse Workspace. Yeah? More questions left? If not, then I want to thank you very much. Leave the feedback in the WUA app. I think everybody already said it, but like we are as a speaker want to improve our sessions every time, and every time we want to make it better for you, better understandable for you. But so if it was not okay, leave it there as well. I like also the bad messages, so I don't care. That's feedback. My slides will be this afternoon on my GitHub page, so you can read it easily afterwards. If you want to contact me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I do post a lot of things. And thank you. Have a great conference.